right now on Chronicle in high definition.
The crime of the century terrorized the city.
In the greater area of Boston, no woman alone was safe.
Phil DiNatale, the Boston cop consumed by the case. Albert DeSalvo, the man who confessed to 13 murders.
Everything I am, I hate, and almost can't believe it was me.
F. Lee Bailey, the lawyer who made a name for himself.
Everybody wanted the credit for catching the strangler.
Tangled lies in the case of the Boston Strangler. For the first time, Detective DiNatale, in his own words,
this is the untold story of the Boston Strangler.
Revealing details never broadcast till now. The Boston Strangler, next on Chronicle. Good evening. It is said to be the first serial murder case in the country. The gruesome slayings of 13 women in the Boston area, believed to have been the work of one man who came to be known as the Boston Strangler. 50 years now after the murder of the very first victim, it is a case that officially remains open.
We were desperate for clues, and we listened. I listened to the garbage man if he had something to tell me.
This is the voice of Phil DiNatale, one of the lead investigators of the notorious rash of killings that would haunt the city of Boston for years. Phil died in 1987.
This one here in June '67.
But today, his son, John DiNatale, and his grandson, Myles Jewell, are in the finishing stages of a documentary film called Stranglehold, in the shadow of the Boston Strangler.
This is the untold story of the Boston Strangler.
It's the story of a veteran cop, his meticulous style of investigation, and his near obsession with a case that took far too long to solve. To this day, some people contend it never has been solved. That does not include Myles, who holds a master's in film from NYU. This is his first major project.
When I first started making the movie, it was for sure a kind of whodunit. Like, this is going to be the final chapter. We're going to tell my grandfather's story of how consumed he got with his professional life and how that affected our family.
It began on June 14th of 1962, Ann Slessor's murder. This murder was the turning point, the greatest turning point, and the greatest thrill of my life.
I remember not seeing much of my dad. I remember being from the ages of really from 10 until my teen years, he was kind of like a phantom in the house.
One common denominator was that nobody heard any rustling, banging, screaming in all 13 murders.
In the same month, the elderly Mary Mullen, Nina Nichols, and Helen Blake were all found dead in their apartments, while Ida Erga and Jane Sullivan were found in August. A second round of strangulations left 2 girls dead in the cold month of December, 20-year-old Sophie Clark and 23-year-old Patricia Bassett. Unlike the other victims, the murder of these 20-somethings made it clear that in the greater area of Boston, no woman alone was safe. After a few months of no new stranglings in early 1963, another 5 women were found: Mary Brown, Beverly Sammons, Evelyn Corbin, Joan Graff, and finally, New Year's Day of January 1964, the youngest murder victim was found in her apartment on Charles Street, 19-year-old Mary Sullivan, totaling 13 bodies in 18 months.
With murders in several jurisdictions, then Attorney General Ed Brooke appointed a task force to investigate the killer now known as the Boston Strangler. Phil DiNatale, a Boston detective, was asked to join the squad, and he brought plenty to the table, including the commitment to work endless hours for no overtime pay, plus an uncanny ability to keep complex records well before the age of computers.
When you look through my dad's files, you see mugshots of so many different individuals, so many separate manila files of individual names that they would be checking out, you know, where they worked, where they were in work, I mean, you know, pounding on doors.
It was Phil's instinct that helped him crack the case. He was convinced that one of the victims held a special link to the killer. Sophie Clark, the Strangler's only black victim, was a medical student.
Sophie Clark was a murder that was real warm. What I mean by warm, The police were there within hours.
Phil tracked down nearly every person she ever knew and was still looking to interview 2 nurses with whom she had worked. That's when the most important tip of the entire case came to him from a security guard at Massachusetts General Hospital.
Always keeping records of his day-to-day, Phil's journals document how the case of the Boston Strangler finally broke. Beginning with an anonymous letter that the head of security at Mass Journal forwarded to Phil, his journals begin. He told me about a good suspect and gave me some information on one Albert H. DeSalvo of Malden. An unknown nurse gave him the information.
This young girl was attacked by Albert DeSalvo. And she said that Albert DeSalvo came to her apartment and told her that she was the Boston Strangler after he raped her and bound and gagged her and spread-eagled her.
Albert DeSalvo shot to the top of Phil's list of prime suspects.
As my dad would say, I started to like this guy. I got the little feeling, Johnny, I started to like this guy. So he started checking him out. I looked through my dad's journals. I mean, there are just repeated entries of at the Mass General trying to locate the nurse, at the Mass General trying to locate the nurse, talk to so-and-so, talk. I mean, they worked so hard to try and identify this woman, and they never could.
With Phil's vast file of potential perps, why wasn't DeSalvo in the mix? As it turns out, DeSalvo was supposedly incarcerated for other crimes while most of the stranglings occurred. But it was Phil DiNatale who figured out DeSalvo was, in fact, free at all the right times.
He was supposed to serve about 2 years or a year and a half. He served a couple months. He was out in April of '62. But something happened along the line on his record at the courthouse. They didn't put it down that he was released. They just put it down that he was serving his time. That what meant it. If that was true, then he would be he would be in jail the first 8, 9, 10 murders. So that's how everybody overlooked him. No sooner that happened, everybody was jumping on the bandwagon because he'd becoming #1 suspect.
And you can catch a sneak preview of the film Stranglehold in the Shadow of the Boston Strangler tomorrow evening, June 14th, 7 p.m. at the Coolidge Corner Theater. DiNatale accuses DeSalvo's lawyer of jumping the gun on justice.
Well, I just want this to be on record, and this is the truth, so help me God, that we had him first.